Okay, to continue where we left off yesterday with Hamoed. So there's a lot of things we learned. You're not allowed to do things you are allowed to do. So yesterday we're learning about general simcha, not getting married, wine and meat, not doing any writing. That's unnecessary. So there's another din in halacha about you're not allowed to do laundry. Again, the same reason is why you're not supposed to do laundry during Chol Hamoed, because the Chum didn't want that people should leave over all their laundry when they don't work for Chol Hamoed, and then they're going to be doing extra work, Tirchi Yisrael, extra work on Chol Hamoed, which they don't want people to be doing. But what happens if somebody runs out of clothing, or let's say years ago they didn't have disposable diapers? So they used to have cloth diapers that needed to be washed often, so to speak. So the question is, are those things allowed to be washed? So the din is they are allowed to be washed, or if somebody ran out of clothes, they mamish don't have enough clothes for the last days, so then they're allowed to wash clothing, but only what you must have. If you need 2 shirts, you can't say, okay, I'm making a load anyway already, let me just dump in more shirts and more other clothing. So then you wouldn't be allowed to do that at all. You're only allowed to wash what you must have for Yom Tov. A very common thing is people have tablecloths in the sukkah, and they got dirty over Yom Tov. We had 6 meals, right, this year. You had 6 meals, and plus the sukkah and the wind, the junk falls down onto the tablecloths, and the tablecloths get dirty. So the din is, if you need the tablecloths for the last days, and you don't have any other tablecloths, so then you would be allowed to wash. But if you have, let's say, 3 dirty tablecloths, and you only need 2 out of the 3 for the last days, you're not allowed to wash 3. You're only allowed to wash 2, or whatever the amount that you need. So all those things you're not allowed to wash except things that you need, and you're not allowed to put in stuff into the machine and say, well, it's doing anyway, I'm not doing anything that you're not allowed to do either. Okay, another thing is things that pertain to food, or another case that comes up, what happens if you have linen on the bed, and now and the linen is not clean, people slept on it already, and now you're going to be having guests coming to your house for the last days, let's say. So then you're allowed to wash the laundry that you need, because again, it's what's called davar avud. There's something that you're not going to be able to, you need it for the last day, so you'd be allowed to do it. If somebody could do without it, they definitely have to do something without it. Now, generally speaking, with malacha that you're allowed to do on Chol Hamoed, so generally we learned a person should not do as much work as much as possible during Chol Hamoed. But what is the definition of work that you, for instance, you're allowed to cook Chol Hamoed, you're allowed to clean the house Chol Hamoed, but they bring down, let's say you can wash dishes, but let's say you have silver to polish. So that you're not supposed to do. It says in halacha that you're not supposed to do Chol Hamoed, unless if you need it for the last days. If you're polishing, let's say a kiddush cup or whatever, you need it for the last day, so then you would be allowed to polish it Chol Hamoed. Cleaning the house, all the household stuff, that you're allowed to do. Now, concerning construction, I had an interesting thing. This girl calls me today, and she says, okay, I'm supporting myself, I'm taking a course, okay, and I have a few papers to make that need to be done before the end of Yom Tov. So she said, can I do it? So again, she's supporting herself, she needs the money, she's taking a course to be able to support herself. So he said, yeah, you're allowed to do it. So she says to me, why? So I say, are you asking me if you're allowed to, and asking me why? You're asking me, I never tell people why. Rabbi Bachlal, the Rebbe once mentioned it for bringing. Rabbi Rabbonim don't tell people why, because then they'll misinterpret it. Or, you're asking Shah, this is the answer. Why go learn? Anyway, so she says to me, why? I said, why are you asking me why? So she said, because a relative of hers told her that you really shouldn't do it. So I said, it's so funny. I said, who's this relative of yours? It's a sister. I said, she a Rav? I mean, sister said she shouldn't do it. I mean, so she said, but why? I said, why? You asked me a question, I answered the question. That's it. Now, I had no whys. But things, let's say people have something broken. I'll give you, Moshe, you can't sew new clothing on Yom Tov. Let's say somebody bought a new suit, okay, and they want to make the cuffs or the hem or whatever it may be, let's say. So then you wouldn't be allowed to do that on Chol Hamoed. If somebody something tore, classic example, a button falls off. So in Chol Hamoed, you need it for Yom Tov. So then it's not what's called Maisa Umen. There's an halacha called Maisa Hedyet and Maisa Umen. Maisa Hedyet means a regular person does malacha. It's not professionally done. And then you have Maisa Umen, something which is professionally done. So things which are sewing, which is, let's say, Maisa Hedyet, which are like sewing in a button, is not a professional thing. So stamp to sew in buttons, you can, but if a button falls off, you need it for Yom Tov, for Chol Hamoed, you could sew in a button. But what?
Yes, so you're talking about like writing and stuff for a child, like pre-bar stuff. Do they want to color, or should they be advised not to, or what's the...
Kid under bar mitzvah could color on Chol Hamoed. Huh?
Should you even say like we don't normally, or...
It depends what age. If they're 12 and a half, yeah, you should tell them, yeah, generally we don't do it. If they're under the age of 6 or 7, which is under the age of chinuch fisher, they can color. Because I'll tell you what, you have to look at the total picture. Let's say a kid is not going to color. You tell him, no, you can't color. So what are the alternatives? The alternatives usually in that case is fighting with a sibling. That's the alternative of what usually, let's be realistic, right? Okay, they'll fight, whatever. So then, that's the lesser of so coloring on Chol Hamoed for a kid under bar mitzvah is lesser of the evils. So again,
But it's better to do it like on a tablet, like a computer, like a drawing.
It's better, we learned yesterday, we discussed that a computer is not halachically actually writing, so it's a little different.
That's what I did, I gave them to do it once.
But a person that for Panos does graphic designs, let's say, and they need to have a deadline for a certain thing, they'll be allowed to do it in Chol Hamoed. Because it's davar of, they're going to lose something by not doing it. Okay, but you can clean, if there's any, we mentioned the other day that if you're learning and you're not going to write down what you brainstormed, so then you would be allowed to write it down also. Obviously, anything which is dangerous, you're allowed to do and Chol Hamoed. Generally speaking, people should not do extra work for no reason at all, even if it's not actually malacha. Like we said, in the poskim they bring down, I'll give you an example. Should somebody go to a dentist on Chol Hamoed? So a lot of times, it's just convenient. Right, I'm not working. Why should I take off another day of work? I'm not working, so I might as well go to the dentist. So Pesach, you have a bigger shaila, because maybe some of the stuff might be chametz. That might be another issue. But even Chol Hamoed, poskim write, you shouldn't be doing that. Unless they write, well, Chol Hamoed is usually a time when the family's together. Okay? So if you're not going to take the pictures, you're going to lose the opportunity to have a family photo, right? So then it's davar of it. Then you're losing things by it. In fact, there was a story, it's printed in the in the back. There's a bacher that took a picture of the Rebbe Chol Hamoed. Even though a lot of people did, but this particular bacher took a picture of the Rebbe on Chol Hamoed, and the Rebbe turned to him and said, in Yiddish, he said, do you have a heter from a Rav to take pictures on Chol Hamoed? That's what the Rebbe asked him. But other people, the Rebbe did let take pictures of himself on Chol Hamoed. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that people, what?
What about like a woman who likes to crochet or knit? She does it as
She should not do it on Chol Hamoed. They should
not
do
a
it.
job.
I know, but it doesn't matter if it's a job or not. You don't do sewing. Women have a minute, they don't do it Rosh Chodesh either. They don't do sewing. So then they wouldn't do needlepoint or crocheting or things like that either. And Rosh Chodesh, and definitely not Chol Hamoed. Chol Hamoed is halacha. Rosh Chodesh is a minig. So it's much stronger Chol Hamoed than the other thing.
Can someone get organized, like clean out their closet? Is it going to be
Again, clean out the closets, the household chores, it says in halacha you are allowed to do. But stam to leave things for Chol Hamoed, people should avoid doing. If you look in contemporary tshuvas, they're right, people b'chlal shouldn't go shopping Chol Hamoed. Not for food, we mentioned this yesterday. Not for food. Food there's no shaila, you can go buy food on Chol Hamoed. It's time to go shopping, so if there's sales, it's one thing. It's time, people shouldn't. Even with sales, you should know, in halacha you have different, sometimes it says, hefsid moment you could do things, and sometimes it says hefsid meruba, a big loss of money, and then in other places it says hefsid meruba ma'oid, a very, very big loss of money. So you have different categories in halacha of what you'd be allowed to do or not allowed to do. Okay, let me see. Oh, now, another interesting thing about cutting hair, what happens, like say, if somebody trims their mustache? So that you're allowed to do Chol Hamoed. If a woman, let's say, shaves her legs, or whatever, so that they could do Chol Hamoed. Things like that you could do Chol Hamoed. But you can't, if somebody needs to take a haircut, let's say, for medical purposes, whatever, there's an infection, whatever it is, if for medical reasons you'd be allowed to. A person has, let's say, lice, and they need to check the hair, and sometimes they have to cut the hair, so then you could do it, because again, it's not stam, it's an exceptional case that they're doing it for. Trying to think, there's a whole book here, I'm just trying to think practical things that come up. Okay, cutting nails for a mitzvah, you're allowed to. Okay. That we said if you have only one shirt or one piece of clothing, kids' clothing you can wash. Okay, for instance, see, there's even an argument in halacha, can you polish your shoes Chol Hamoed? Okay, wiping them clean, that's for sure you're allowed to. But Moshe, are you allowed to polish your shoes? So some people say you're allowed to, especially if somebody does it a few times a week. Some people say you should only do it with a guy, not, but they write if you have two pairs of shoes, one needs to be polished and one not, wear the one that doesn't need the polishing instead of go polishing.
What about brushing your hat?
Brushing your hat, you're allowed to. That's just removing dust. It's not... even on a garment, Pos can bring down, that what happens if you have a dirt spot on a garment? You're not washing the whole garment. You have got a stain, whatever. So an individual spot, you're allowed to wash in Chol Hamoed. That's what the Pos can write. You can take like a cloth with a water, with a little soap, whatever, and wash it off. Because it's not really washing the garment, you're just washing part of a space in the garment that you want to, that you should be able to use.
At the time of automatic, like right now, like, it's a machine, you just toss it in and take it out. Is that really...
You talk about washing machine?
Yeah.
No, I'm telling you clearly, even a washing machine, you can only put in what you must have. You can't put
Right.
Okay, if things break, you need to do it. Oh, one more thing. Let's say you have construction going on in your house. Or a lot of places, mikvahs are being built, or shuls, or schools, or whatever, during Chol Hamoed. So if it's Seirech Rabim, like a Meisid, the institution, then you're allowed to do work Chol Hamoed. But let's say in your private house, so if it's repairing, that you're allowed to do Chol Hamoed. Something broke, you're allowed to repair it in Chol Hamoed. If it's just decorative work, like you decide you want to paint your house or grow a garden of flowers, that you're not allowed to do Chol Hamoed. You could do it, if something broke, you could fix it. But you can't do some additional painting. If somebody had water damage, whatever, and they have to fix up the kitchen or the house to be able to live in, so then that they're allowed to do Chol Hamoed. Okay, by the way, if you have a gardener, let's say, that comes on a weekly basis, and he comes on during Chol Hamoed, so he's allowed to do it on Chol Hamoed. But you can't plant new grass in Chol Hamoed, you're allowed to plant new flowers in Chol Hamoed. But just to maintain the thing, by the way, which is another important thing people should be aware of, let's say your gardener comes on Thursday. So you have a gardener, it's very, in California it's very common. Let's say you have a gardener, comes once a week and he comes to your house on Thursday. Now this year Thursday's Yom Tov. You have to tell him not to come. Not only you have to tell him not to come, if he comes and you see him there, you have to tell him not to work. You have to stop him from doing it. Yom Tov, you have to stop him from doing it. See, the best thing is before Yom Tov to tell him to come a different day beforehand, or whatever. But Chol Hamoed, if they come Chol Hamoed, then they can come, that's not a problem.
Is that only because of Marasai?
No. It's halacha. Machad shinus l'meisem,